Hello everybody, Mannix here. Going to be doing a quick little knife review of a Cold Steel classic, the Ti-Lite. This one happens to be the 4-inch blade with the Zyx handle scales. They also have these with the aluminum handle scales, sold with the S35VN blade steel instead of the AUS 8A blade steel that you're seeing on this one. So basically this is the cheaper version of the aluminum models. Again, aluminum models having different handle scales and a more expensive blade steel. They look a little different overall. And this happens to be the small or the 4-inch version. I'll show you the large or 6-inch version in just a minute here. These have been around for quite a while. I just got another one recently because I always go back to these things. They're really nice. They're very affordable, very functional blades. You can see I've been using mine pretty well lately. They're styled after the Italian stiletto folders, which is a nickname for these bayonet-looking or really slim-bladed knives that emerged around the 1950s that were imported from Italy into the United States. If you want to go way back, 1500s or so, there were these daggers that were really slim that a lot of people believe, or a lot of historians believe, that eventually emerged into what we see today, the Italian, or what we know as the stiletto style folder. And then Cold Steel made a modernized version of that, which they often do with a lot of their knives. They'll take inspiration from old knives or swords from centuries ago and then make a modernized version of it, which is something I really like about the company. And this happens to be that, a modern version of the 1950s Italian stiletto. Specs, these retail at $74.99, but early 2022 you can get these all day long for about $40 or so. Overall length 8.75 inches, handle length 4.75 inches, making the blade length, come on math, 4 inches on the nose. 4 ounces on the nose as well as far as their specs go, but I'll weigh that myself. AUS 8A blade, as I said, satin finish, and then let me clean this up a little bit, but as you can see, we have sort of the grind starts almost halfway down the blade, so it's going to be a little bit of a thicker blade right there. Then we have a swedge or false edge, which helps in piercing. It's not sharpened right there, but having less resistance right there helps with the stabbing motion, which is essentially what these knives are meant to do. Liner lock with a big ol' beefy end right there on the liner. We have guards right here that are jimped, so to speak, or cutouts. We have a single thumb stud that is swappable to the left side. It's not a dual thumb stud. I don't know why they insist on doing that, but we have a thumb stud right here, thick old FRN handle scales right here, long back spacer that takes up the entire spine and the butt of the handle right there, almost the butt anyway. Tip up right hand carry only. It is not swappable to the left side. It's a righty friendly knife. It's not very lefty friendly, so it's not the most versatile as far as carry goes. However, just to get everything out of the way, this is a fantastic knife. It's very stylistic. It's very affordable. Its blade steel is good. Its lockup is good. Everything's great for the money. It's very solid. It's just not the most versatile knife. It is designed to be a very stylistic knife. I always talk about versatility versus style. This is definitely more towards the style end of the spectrum when it comes to folding knives. It's not the most versatile. There's other knives for even the $30 range, so slightly less than this one, or about the same price range you can get, that are more versatile, that have a wider blade, that have a flat grind, or a less resistant grind, I should say. Blades that are just more versatile, that can do more things, that are not just specialized for stabbing or piercing, thrusting, penetrating. That's basically all this blade is great for. You can do anything with it. A blade is a blade at the end of the day. It still cuts stuff, but it's not designed for most other, slices, slashes are not going to be great because there's not a whole lot of width there. It's just a very specific style blade. However, if you took one look at this knife, you'd probably understand that. You'd be like, oh yeah, I don't really want to get that one because it's not going to be for you because it's a very specific design. And at that design, it excels at. It's perfect. It's meant for piercing. It's meant to be styled like the Italian stiletto from the 1950s, just modernized. And at that, once again, it excels. But if you're looking for an everyday carry knife, this one's okay. It's an okay defense knife. It's okay, but it's kind of just okay at everything else, but great at piercing. And when it comes to defense, I often would prefer, I think, slashes or being able to do more frantic movements. Because again, a defensive situation, heaven forbid, if that came up, I'd never want to get in that situation. But if I did, what I will say is it's going to be very frantic. It's not going to be the most controlled situation. It's going to be very dark, scary. Don't want to get into that, but basically, a thrust to me anyway, not that I've been into a blade defensive situation like that before, that's a very abrupt, precise, deliberate move. When it comes to defense, your life is on the line, you may have 1 second to act, you're probably going to do something a little bit less controlled, I suppose, so that's when, I don't know. when it comes to this design, it's more novelty. It's interesting. It's still completely functional. If that is what, for whatever reason, you think a Pierce is better for defense, or maybe you trained that way. Oh yeah, excellent blade chip there. But again, general purpose, not great. However, that is not what the knife is supposed to be. It's not a general purpose EDC knife. It's designed to be styled like a stiletto. Flicks out very well. It is not automatic. It's completely manual, just the way I like most knives. Flicks out every single time. Has a very well-designed detent. It clicks with a lot of authority. Barely trying at all. You just build up a little bit of pressure with your thumb and it flicks out as if it's an automatic knife. A lot of people will think this is a switchblade, particularly people who don't know a whole lot about knives. They're going to look at that and go, whoa, that thing illegal? Because there's a spring in there that opens the blade up a little bit? Yeah. Now, the old Ti-Lites, from what I understand, from what I recall years ago, this was a flipper, and it kind of works as a flipper. From what I remember, it was a little bit easier back in the day. Now it's not. I don't know if it's designed to be a flipper or not, but you can use it that way with some practice. You just got to give it a nice all wrist flick there. It's really coarse. That jimping on there, or the cutouts they have on the flipper, are really, really sharp. So despite the flipper being almost flush into the handle, not very obtrusive, and it's kind of difficult to get to, you can open it that way, it's just not very easy. The thumb stud's definitely easier. However, if you practice, and let's say maybe you loosened the pivot screw there a little bit, and you, for whatever reason, wanted to remove that thumb stud, I don't see why you would do that, but you certainly could use the flipper right here. And then this looks almost like a wave, like you could wave it off of your pocket. You can see some tape residue there. I actually use this as almost like a box cutter. I used this little flipper as a box cutter at work because I didn't want to, take out this whole blade and scare all the sheeple and the customers. But this actually worked pretty well as a box cutter. It's not meant to be one. I wouldn't use it. It's going to get really gunked and taped up, but you can use it that way. I think you can wave this off of your pocket. It's not very easy to do. You can do it. I just did it with my sweatpants right there, but it's not easy. I don't think it's designed to be waveable. Maybe you could, but I wouldn't recommend it. You're going to have to practice with this one. Again, this knife is not it's not the most user-friendly knife. It's very specific. Flicking it out, very user-friendly with the thumb. But the flipper and the wave, let's just call it wave and flipper. Yeah, I don't even know if that's what they're designed to be, but they kind of work. You just got to be very deliberate with them. But the thumb stud works every single time. Flicks out very fast, very smooth. Stainless steel liners, not skeletonized. I love the pattern right here, the cutouts they have in the FRN handle, which is not textured very much. You can see some light texturing there, but it's not very grippy. It's smooth. I like it. I like how rounded the knife is. It's very thick. There's a lot to hold on to. So despite not being very grippy, we just have a thickle handle with a lot for your fingers to wrap around, which I like. It is a long knife, I would say, for the size. It's like medium large, I would say, but it is very slim, despite being kind of thick. It's just not very wide as far as knives go. So it's nice. It's not the most friendly EDC knife. It's not the most versatile. It's not the most comfortable. And holding it in a saber grip, good luck. That point is right up against your thumb, and that's just uncomfortable. It would be nice if they kind of flipped these flippers or guards around, but then again, if they did that, then that means this one would be in the opposite side, and it would be even harder to flip out, and then this may be even harder to wave. I don't know why they shaped it that way, but that's just how it is. Yeah, not a huge fan of the way they did, but again, this is designed to be a stylistic folder. It's not meant to be the most comfortable EDC knife out there, and I love it. I love this knife anyway. It's not my go-to carry, but I like having it in the collection. It's just cool. I like having the modern stiletto folder, and again, it's a great knife for that. Flicks out easily. A little bit heavy for the size, 4 ounces. It's not skeletonized or anything. We have a thicker handle here. Carries nicely. I like this Cold Steel pocket clip right here that they use on some of their knives. The Ti-Lites use these. Pocket clip rides kind of low, though. You have quite a bit poking out of your pocket there. I would have liked to see it's just a little bit higher, but for whatever reason, Cold Steel decided not to do that. Again, I like the backspacer. It's a very elegant knife for what it is. I like how the thumb stud is wrapped around or engulfed by this backspacer right here, which is held in by all of these screws. 3 additional screws, including the stop pin right there, hold the backspacer in place. So it's very strong for what it is. And again, it's acting as extra support for that stop pin. I don't know functionally how helpful that really is, mechanically speaking, but from what I understand, it's probably going to help a lot. It's going to strengthen positive force. That's force going on the edge, hacking, slashing like that, or normal cutting. All that pressure gets transferred to the stop pin, which gets transferred to the backspacer right here. I would imagine that helps enforce the locking of the knife right there. I'm surprised more knives don't do that. Maybe it doesn't help, I don't know, but I would imagine that helps a lot. That's a lot of force being enforced onto the stop pin right there to help stop the blade from over traveling, as you can see right there. So I'd imagine that really strengthens the knife up. I would like to see more knives do that. I like the beefy end of the liner they have right here. There's a lot more contacting the tang of the blade down there. It's a little slippery. It looks like it's really textured. If I use my fingernail, it sounds like it, but it's kind of slippery, actually. It's a very small cutout, but it's just big enough to help you get to that with your thumb. So it's actually very easy to manipulate the knife as far as the thumb goes in the liner, but it's not the most friendly. So again, very specific knife. It's very niche, but again, you take one look at it and you can already tell that's what it's supposed to be. It's not an EDC knife I would recommend. It's not even a tactical blade I would defend, or defensive blade, martial blade, whatever you want to call it. It's a very niche stylistic folder. It's good for what it is, but the stiletto style blade, to begin with, this style knife, regardless of what Cold Steel did to it, or regardless of what any company would do to it, its design is just very niche and specific. It's designed to be flicked out and have for thrust cuts. For that, it's good at. For other things, it's just kind of okay. But again, it's an affordable knife. The blade still is good. AUS 8A. A stands for anodized there. AUS 8 in general is a very affordable blade. Still gets very sharp, retains an edge okay, has okay rust resistance. It's not the greatest blade ever, but it keeps costs down. You throw on something more expensive or something better, you're going to increase the price of the knife. This sticks around the $40 range. There's better knives that you can get for that price, but again, I still like this knife for what it is. If you have a Cold Steel collection of any kind, this belongs in there for sure. The Ti-Lite, really like this knife. This is cool. It's just cool to have in the collection, and it is functional. Don't get me wrong. I use this for EDC all the time. But if I were to pick it apart and I were to play critic here, there's better knives you can get for the money as far as overall functionality goes. But this is still a cool knife for what it is. Again, very niche folder. It's cool. It's cool. It pops out every single time with the thumb, so it is fast despite being manual. That's really cool. It's a cool knife overall, just not very versatile. But hey, it still works. It'll still work for defense. It'll still work for EDC. Let's compare this to the 6-inch version, which isn't that much more expensive. I think it's like 15 bucks more. Yeah, much, much bigger. Now, that is a cool knife, the Ti-Lite 6-inch. I have a whole review on this guy. It's a completely different folder right there, but if you want to spend the extra 15 bucks or whatever it is, get the extra 2 inches on the blade, extra 2 inches or whatever it is on the handle, then that's the 6-inch right here. But I would also recommend the aluminum version. If you want something a little bit more elegant and more showy, I would go with the aluminum version, honestly. The aluminum handles, and you have the higher quality blade still right there. That's kind of cool too, but I like this version as well. Really cool. I prefer plastic handles, believe it or not. Not a huge fan of metal handles. The Cold Steel Ti-Lite 4-inch Zyx. Cool knife for the money. If you want one, go get one.